Hey dudes, welcome back to another episode of our Rhomas Men's Team podcast. You are about to listen to one of our prior team meetings. If you ever want to join one of our live sessions that we have every Monday and Friday, head over to rhomas.com. That's RHOMAS.com and put your email in and we will send you a live link every time we record. We generally record on Mondays and Fridays. So if you ever want to be on the actual podcast, like we bring men up all the time to talk about their goals, talk about their obstacles, etc., head over to Rhomas.com. And then also, if you want to help support the channel grow and also have access to exclusive content, book reviews, extra whiteboard sessions, etc., and some coaching sessions, head over to Patreon.com and support us. We would love it. But if not, no biggie. We'll see you on the live sessions. Later, dudes. Enjoy this podcast.
Mr. Matt McCusker, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. So just for the listeners out there, I'm super pumped and excited today. Interviewed Matt a handful of weeks ago, which I'm very new to all this and very dumb with video editing, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get that out the door and splice and trim and all that stuff. But I asked Matt a couple of days ago. I said, "Hey, man, we already talk about goals together and consistently, once every probably couple weeks. Why not just hop on here together if you're game for it? You're out doing your thing, creating your podcast and everything. For those of you who don't know, Matt's got an outstanding podcast called Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. He crushes it on the comedy scene, is doing all this other stuff. So, and I'm out, trying to build an investment company, etc. Why don't we meet back and just talk about the process, goal setting, and so on? Because, hell, we already do it anyway. So I'm super appreciative for you joining me, brother.
Yeah, man, dude. This is one of those things. It's like when you asked me, I was like, "Fuck yeah, this will be awesome anyway." And for me, it's super helpful too to like check in with you weekly because I talk to you. I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is the stuff I need to do." And between those times, I just completely unravel and fall apart in terms of like the things I'm supposed to be doing usually. So it's like when I check in with you weekly, it's like, yes, this is the stuff I'm supposed to be doing. It's super fucking helpful, man. So
well, do you ever read
fun to talk
Power
about.
of Habit?
No, I think I did the blink of that, I think. But I haven't like read the full thing.
Dude, I swear, because you're bringing up a great point, and we're all the same. I'm in the same boat. In that book, they talk about remind, routine, reward, like the 3 R's. And every habit book that I read, or every goal setting book that talks about how to like habitualize activity, it boils down really simply to those 3 things: remind, routine, reward. I have found that for me, and it seems like for a lot of others, the whole goal setting is relatively easy, although most people don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually do that exercise and goal set, the biggest thing there is then reminding yourself, because you're going to have more than 2 goals. So all of a sudden you've got 20, 30 goals, whatever it is. And then your mind just gets taken off on 50 different directions. And, you being a new father and all that stuff, me working in an office, like all of these things. And it's like, do you have your reminders constantly to say, no, this is what you should be focused on? So yeah, man, I get, and conversations and being in a group on a team. And that's why we're creating this. That is, in my opinion, it's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, it is. It really is. Because otherwise you just get left into like the weeds of your daily experience, which is just kind of like, it's just nonstop, like weird events that distract you into other weird events where next thing you know, it's like in the time equation and they're like, shit, it's already this time. Oh, I'm supposed to have this done. Now you're kind of pissed and flustered. And it's like, it's like, that's the stuff that I like to think about of like, so there's a person, there's a set of goals or desired tasks. And then there's like the things that pop up and block people from doing them, and the little bit of like wiggle room you give yourself where you're like, well, all right, today's an unusual day. Like I'll be on this tomorrow, and that's kind of what pops up. And then it really is kind of, how do you stay on task and how do you kind of like keep the little things from popping up and blocking you?
What are those little mental, paragraphs or sentences that are super sneaky and pop up and derail you?
Oh, dude, it's minor external ones. It's like, so I can get into a thing right now. I'm in the weird position of trying to establish a work schedule that's as respectable as it would be if I had an external work schedule. Because like if I was working for like a lumber company and I had a boss who was like, you have to be here between 9 and 4 every day. It's non-negotiable. Otherwise we hold your paycheck. You don't get your paycheck. When you work for yourself, then it's like, it's up to you. But then you can be like, well, family's here, so let me just hang with this. And it's, well, that's here, let me do this. And it's like, you almost have to, and this is where like time and, time blocking and all that stuff really comes into it. And I'm still doing it right now of like, what's my schedule? Like I work for myself. I have a weird unorthodox kind of job, but it's like, I do need to be putting in hours a day just for like the weird, like, dude, we're trying to set up a website with t-shirts on it. It's like, it's just, you'd be blown away by how much bullshit it takes to get that done. It's unbelievable. And it's like, you need hours a day just to do inane, dumb stuff. And then, the meat of what you're doing, which is like, in a podcast of like, what are we going to talk about? Or even just like, not even consciously planning that out, but like, just start reading and opening yourself up to what's going on. So you can start formulating these kind of things, the meat of whatever the person's consuming that's listening.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that skill set, and I'm working on the same exact thing. It's like the stuff it takes to achieve a certain goal is actually very simple. It's one quote that comes to mind is Dan Sullivan's a guy that I read a lot and I get business coaching from him. He says addition through subtraction. You can really increase your results not by adding to the schedule, but by taking away. So you're only working on the essential few. Now that sounds really easy to say, but damn, it is so difficult. It is so difficult. And I don't know about you, but right now I'm dealing with, it's like, okay, I read a quote another time. I was like, you initially work to make money. So like you have to put in your time to make money, but then at some point when you've reached a ceiling, right, in productivity or in happiness or whatever it is, you then basically have to spend that money to buy back your time. And I'm going through that right now. And how do you hire people to do certain projects so that you get off of the t-shirt task? Mm-hmm. Because you're only operating at 30% horsepower when you're working on admin of t-shirt website task.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Well, there's also, dude, like you were saying, like it sounds simple to subtract things, but it's like, I have all these projects I want to work on. And like, dude, I'm trying to write another book and I'm like grieving the fact that I don't have time. Like I had to, like, otherwise I'd be torturing myself. Like, well, I'm not doing, there's this other thing I should be doing every day and I'm not. And I had to come with like the conscious grips of the fact where it's like, that's on the back burner again. Like I put it on the back burner all throughout grad school. And I'm like, once I'm done grad school, I'll continue writing this book, which, I like to do. And then it's like, now I'm like, I had to like, not, it's like before I'd kind of be like, it's something that I know I should be doing that I'm not doing every day, which to me takes a toll on me. It's like, it just kind of like, it stands my hairs up. But yeah, it's like the last 2 days I had to like, almost like funeral for my project of like, all right, buddy, you're buried for now. Like I can't do it. I can't fucking do it right now. But yeah, like I said, but once you do that, it's like, oh, I can totally stop worrying about that now and just kind of dedicate my energy to, like you said, like simplifying it into less tasks that you can just go full bore on, where you're just like totally, you like you said, you're maxed out. You're on 100% in terms of like your skills at this thing, rather than like, like the fucking file won't upload. Oh man, shit. Yep. God damn it. And just like, I'm squeezing my fists at a computer screen with my eyes about to pop out of my head. And it's like, this is not helping anybody.
When I think you said something pretty brilliant there. When you put that task to bed, or at least in the parking lot, did you actually do like a formal process? And if so, did you write it down?
No, dude, it's so fun. I swear, I think on some level we are mind twins, but like, so
yeah.
Lately I've been physically writing things. I was just thinking about how when you physically write things, not even just typing, because I like, I like to write a lot. I like to sit and type. Lately, and this is kind of one of those, like sometimes when you have like right now I have a 4-month-old, which brings upon all kinds of just like the sleep deprivation. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, my life's over. I can't do the things I want. But now a 4-month-old puts me on the schedule. Like I have got to be up when she's up. And then I have to, be up with her while she wakes up for like an hour, then goes back to bed and takes a nap. So I have to like I'm forced to do something quiet for like 2 hours, where I have to kind of stay in close proximity. And then really it's either like meditating, reading, or writing. And since my computer's downstairs, when I write, I have to physically write things down. So like I've been doing a lot of physical writing, dude. It's amazing about how much different it is in typing. But to your point too, when it's like, yeah, and you arrange that somewhere physically rather than thinking it, it's a big deal. And then, write it down and then you put it somewhere you can see it is like step 2. And that's even bigger, where you're like, shit, okay, yeah, I think it's done.
For that stuff that's in the parking lot, when you said, okay, I'm going to put it to rest for a bit. Does your mind ever then go back and like, just because it's sneaky? And I want to talk about that video that you sent me for ACT therapy. Does your mind ever say like, oh man, shit, I should be doing that? And then you refer back to the list that says, oh, when I was thinking correctly, my prior self, I recall now, cause I'm reading it, that says, no, you put this task to rest in the parking lot for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten better because it's like I haven't written it down yet, it'll just pop up. And then here, and this is kind of the torturous part, and this is the thing I was thinking about. Like I try to pursue the projects and activities that, like, when I'm idle, like when I'm sitting there and like, my baby's sleeping, I just have time on my hands. So like whatever I naturally kind of gravitate towards, which lately has been more of like the psychology stuff, the psychology podcast I'm doing. So my natural thoughts have been gravitating towards psychology, where before sometimes my natural thoughts, or just like my automatic thoughts, will gravitate towards like, this would be cool for this book I'm doing. So like when I'm getting those thoughts, like this would be a cool thing to put in there, and I'm unable to put it in there, that's where I'm like, eh. So, but yeah, lately, to answer your question, since most of my thoughts have been like kind of like been flowing towards the psychology side of things rather than like the writing side, it's been easier for me to deal with, because it's like, well, my brain right now is on this thing.
Well, and just so the listeners know, how can they ultimately get to your psychology podcast? And before you answer, I want to give the listeners an update like on this, because I had a really cool perspective seeing Matt's journey. He and I met in freshman year in college, and this guy literally was talking to me about psychology and reading like different little pop psychology magazines, et cetera, when we were, 19 years old. And that has been the consistent theme of, I would say, kind of always a thread putting everything together in his career, even if it was completely unrelated. He still had this interest. And I think what you bring to the table, Matt, is an unbelievable perspective. And I don't know what I'm talking about. However, I have noticed that psychology majors tend to be a little like, it's a very interesting group of people.
Say it, dude. They're weird.
Yeah. And you're not that, right? Like, you're
I'm
not that.
weird.
You can speak to like normalcy of life and saying, hey, here's what the research shows. And I'm not just some like, and I say this as respectfully as possible, I'm not just some like lunatic who just got into it because I'm a lunatic wanting to study other lunatics, I don't know how else to say it. And, I'm sure I'll get flack for that, but.
No, because this is a problem. I was a psych major in school. That's what I went to school for. And I was so freaked out by my peers in the class. That was a main reason I left. I
didn't know that.
Oh my God, dude. I like forget about this. I went to psychology. I took AP psychology in high school. It was the only subject I honestly like enjoyed or really cared about. And I did well in AP. I'm like, damn, I think I could like go to school for this. I like it. Dude, first semester of college, I had like a 3.8. I was doing really well, but my colleagues, the students who I was with, and again, this is my 19-year-old brain, so I'm basically like a dog, just like already on one level, just like, but I'm watching people like there was a point where I was watching people compare medications they're on, like, well, I'm on Zoloft Impactful, and they're like, well, I take it, and they started like comparing all the stuff they're on, and then they're like, I picked up on this really early on. There becomes like psychologists tend to kind of like to separate themselves from the general population, where they're like, well, we've read the DSM and we know which ones you have, which, mental disorders we can just say you have, even though I think in 1973 being gay was a mental disorder. So you have like, and it's just like, oh, sorry, we were kind of wrong up until 1973. But
right.
Guy in a sweater just being like, you're gay, here's your clip, get out of here. Like, but the whole point of it is like a lot of psychology that this was part of the reason I left. Like you said, weird environment of people, because it does attract weirdos, and I'm definitely weird as well, but there becomes like a weirdo superiority where it's like a pin the tail on the donkey thing. And I saw this in school, that you give these kids this book, the DSM, which is like all like the things people have like delineated. You take human pain and suffering, and then they try to delineate it into some weird algebra of like, hold on, you haven't slept in 2 weeks, okay, that's adjustment disorder, not depression. It's fucking nonsense. To me, it's nonsense. But then you have these people who get off on being like, they sit there and they do like, you have that one. And it's like a pin the tail on the donkey, and they feel super smart because they match you to the symptoms, and you're just kind of like, okay. And then you start feeding into this thing where you're like, I have anxiety disorder and I have to take Xanax. And it's like, dude, it's a totally wrong, in my opinion, it's a totally wrong thing to do. Of like,
Yeah, from what you have seen, because I completely agree with you. From as an outsider's perspective, I've very much been interested in psychology and reading, I would say, more like retail level psychology books for probably 2 decades now, or close to a decade and a half. And a lot of things are very enlightening. And it's like, oh, okay, this is a pattern of other humans, and it's valuable to know that because they're also kind of giving antidotes to those patterns. But then some things are just like, like, I don't know. Like I'll read like some books on like parenting or something like that. And it's just like a completely, treat the child because, they're emotional. It should be all positive and so on. And then like, you kind of have this feeling. It's like, no, maybe like there is a real thing called like a little bit of punishment for a child. And maybe you should do that. And then all of a sudden, years later, a guy like either Jordan Peterson comes out or Carol Dweck. I think she was the one who wrote Grit or something along those lines. I think that was the book. But it gave more of like the common sense. It's like, oh, now there actually is a bit of common sense in this domain of parenting or in this domain of grit, which is like sometimes you have to grind through stuff, right? And stuff is hard, and there is no real meaning of smart, even though there kind of technically is, but it's way overused. It's really like the smart people, the people who get A's in school are the people who study, who put in the hours. There's a direct correlation. So have you found like the practicality side of, hey, here's the patterns, but instead of taking Zoloft or whatever any medications are, why not first look into the actual mechanics of being a human being, of sleep, nutrition, treating people properly, all of those things. So where's that balance for you of understanding the clinical side, but then also understanding how to mesh that with the practical human side or common sense side?
And this is where people typically like, when you go against the DSM or whatever, like you're saying, of like the strictly psychological side, they'll be like, yeah, what about like schizophrenics? It's like, okay, like you're talking very rare. Yeah. And that's it. It's great that psychiatry exists for that. And they still, even though they kind of really don't understand it that well, but it's like, yeah, this is the problem, man. And the problem is even that now it's like general practitioners, like the general doctor now is the one giving people Zoloft. So like you go to your GP and you don't even have to see a psychologist. You're like, hey, I'm kind of sad. And they're like, here's Zoloft. Someone who's totally not trained to deal with, at least not formally trained, it's, whatever. Will just kind of be like, well, have you tried Zoloft? So that's kind of where it's at. But it's like, yeah, it should be like you were saying, this is kind of what I think of, like, let's demystify this whole thing. Like, how much do you sleep? What are you eating? Like, are you getting sunlight? Like, let's talk about that. It's like, but then it's like you have someone who's been like, they'll be like, well, I have a disease. I can't move. You don't understand. And it's like, and this is why I love specifically for like depression, I can't get out of bed. And it's like, all right, I can sympathize with it seeming overwhelming to get out of bed. Like I do understand that, but it's like, have you tried, this is like I think I got this from Scott Adams, honestly. He's not even a psychologist. It's like, they talk about micro movements where it's like, can you wiggle your fingers? And then you just go like this. And it's like, well, I can wiggle my fingers. And it's like, wiggle your toes. And it's like, can you bend your knee? And then you kind of broke that task down into these tiny micro tasks where now it's like, yeah, I can do stuff. And then you get up and next thing you know, you're out, rather than like, so two scenarios. You just go like, it's my disease. I can't move. I can't get up. Then what are you doing? You're laying in a dark room. You're not eating, you're probably waiting for breakfast, or you start actually being like, I can do things, wiggling your toes, doing this. And next thing you know, you're out in the sunlight, walking around. You're like, I kind of feel better. Or you could have totally been convinced you had a disease by, a medical professional who's like, yeah, you do have a disease. And the only way you can deal with this is medication. And it's like, it's crazy.
Oh, I've got a friend, and a very close friend, basically like family to me, that I've known since I was a child, and I love her. She's phenomenal. But like, she's got all these problems, and it's kind of hard for me to say to her, but it's like, had to get surgery on her back. Went to the doctor. She's on antidepressants.
1 in 4 women's on them too, by the way.
What'd you say?
1 in 4 women are on some form of antidepressant.
1 in 4 women.
According to something I read, at least I should say.
Oh, but no, yeah. I would, it's very consistent, at least with my perception, that like, and I asked her about the path that she took to get there, to like have all of these things. Number one, she eats candy constantly, which as an adult, I can't even fathom, right? Like, so it's like all of these things are off. Her sleep is absolutely terrible. And then, so, I think probably a decade ago, she was put on antidepressants, and I asked her what the process was. And it was literally what you said. I went to the doctor and I said, like, I'm having these, I'm having like issues mentally, like with these stuff. And I met a certain criteria, and within that meeting, right, one meeting, right? All of a sudden I've got a prescription for antidepressants.
That also like, and one of the side effects of, I think it's Zoloft, disturbs your REM sleep. So very much like alcohol,
sure.
it doesn't let you enter like a full REM sleep. And then so what happens is so you're on Zoloft, and it's different for everybody. Everyone's biology is different, but what a common side effect is you don't really sleep that well. And then like I don't know if you remember, if you ever, like when you drank a lot, you kind of, alcohol disturbs your REM sleep as well. So like what happens is you get that REM rebound right around like, if you go to bed at like 11, right around like 5, right before you wake up, basically you launch into like super REM sleep because it finally dissipates out of your system. So you have a person who's already kind of struggling, you disrupt the REM sleep, and then they wake up from like vivid, insane dreams. And then it's like, let's start the day up again. Typically like, kind of scary ones. So it's like, it's just such a bad idea, man. And it gets touted and it almost to the point where people are like, they'll get mad if you question the pharmaceutical model of mental health. People be like, fuck you, dude, you don't understand. It's like, well, it hasn't been demonstrated in the literature. It's 20% more effective than placebo. It's not enough to be clinically significant. And somehow it's just been piggybacked through advertising into like, no, this is the solution to the, humanity's deepest existential problems, which is like, the meaning of life, death, and all that stuff. And the problem is too, there is a very small percentage of people who their problems are strictly some sort of biological functioning, but not the amount of people who are on them right now. It's like, and that process should be like you were saying, let's check all these easy physical things off the box first, rather than just having a doctor just write you a script. And then you could be like, let's try exercise, sunlight, everything's good. There's still a problem. All right, we're going to go. It's glad these things exist, or it's good these things exist. So we can go like a, pharmaceutical route for like plan X, but plan X is plan A. And it's like, it's just not good.
Oh, I mean, never once have either myself or anybody who I know, have they gone to the doctors and they say, okay, number one, they never ask me a list of questions that are like actually real. They'll ask like certain questions, but it's never been, how much sleep are you getting consistently? And like, let's tell the truth about it. Mm-hmm. What are you actually eating? Like, tell me in detail to the best of your ability what you've been eating for the last, let's just say, week. And is that consistent for the last few months or since we last met? What is your sleep like? What is your water intake like? All of these things. How are your relationships going? Like all of these fundamental things that I feel like after you read just a handful of books or one book on I'd say perspective or personal psychology or personal development. I hate using that term because I think it's too much of a loaded term, but I think you get the point. Mm-hmm. And why are these professionals not saying like, hey, okay, you have an issue. Great. You're a human being. You're going to have problems. You can either solve it. Let's just say like weight loss. Like I can tell you for sure, I've worked with a lot of people on weight loss and they've gone to the doctors before, and the conversation that comes up of surgery, of all this stuff, it's just crazy. Mm-hmm. And it's not like they don't sit there and say, okay, look, you've got two options. You're at a fork in the road. You could either go the medical clinical route, right, which is going to cost you a boatload of money, but you're not really going to have to do much of anything. And the results are kind of going to be, so, but you're going to be on these pills all of your life or whatever, X, Y, and Z. Or,
but when you say, you mean like just to like the pills that come with like not dealing with the fact that you're overweight and all the extra support you're going to need to function? Or do you mean like,
so let's say weight loss, for example.
Yeah.
And all of the things that come along with it,
right?
High blood pressure, all of these types of things.
Diabetes.
Exactly. Diabetes.
Yeah.
We can give you this set of pills, which by the way is going to parlay into another set of pills, and you're going to be on this perpetual cycle. Or you could not go down that road. And by the way, that road will be easy, right? Mm-hmm. Or you go and do these other things, right? Like you do the proper things, and yes, it will be hard. You spent a decade putting on the weight, so you're going to have to spend a little bit of time taking it off, but you won't have to get on these pills. And I know that sounds like an exaggerated story, but that's the truth. Like my mechanic was super overweight. I love this guy. And he was telling me, we always talk about nutrition when I go there. And he's like, dude, I was on 17 pills last year, like, and I'm in my 50s. Jesus. Now I started eating properly, right? Now I'm on 0. He said, but the doctor's never had that conversation with me. That to me like blow. And I've got to imagine that spills over into the psychological world and all these other worlds that come to your health, mental health, physical health, etc.
Yeah, they rarely ever. I mean, the place I was at, so I did an internship at a high school, and luckily the guy who was kind of like like in charge over there would ask, you got to ask these kids if they're sleeping or not. Cause that's like an easy one. And it's so funny talking to teenagers. I'm like, how do you sleep? And they're like, I sleep fine. I'm like, well, when do you go to sleep? They're like 1. I'm like, when do you get up? Like 6. I'm like, okay, that's really bad. And they're like, I'm fine. Like, no, dude, your eyes, you're yawning. And they're like, okay. But it's like, yeah, but if that were built into, like you were saying, more of an official kind of thing where it's like, at the doctor, like at the doctors, yeah, I'm thinking of the questions they ask you. They're just kind of like, do you do drugs? And nobody's going to be like, yeah, I smoked crack yesterday. I smoked crack this morning. Like, okay, thanks for telling me. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And a lot of that I think is kind of like a script given from insurance companies. So like, let's hit these bare minimums. Let's do this. Let's just check the boxes and keep everything moving. And it's like, like you were saying, where it can be there's so much literature and evidence based on like nutrition and sleep of doing like unbelievable in hydration of like solving tons of problems. But it's like, my wheels start to spin of like why that's not more widely accepted. And I do think it's because of just the nature of like, the marketplace for other things. You can't really profit off of like, hey dude, I got this new thing called water. It's mine. Try it out. And it's like, you can't do that. So yeah,
that's exactly right.
And it's a shame. It's like, it's just a bad part of, I think of the best current option we have right now, but it's just like it's something that people have to just like, and this is a hard thing to watch. And I'm wondering if it's just the case for all of time, but there's just a majority of people who can't separate themselves from the current system they're in and be like, hold on a second, let me figure this out for myself, rather than just kind of like herd mentality their way right to, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and, major depression. It's like, well, if you stopped and been like, hold on, something about this is off. I think it's just something, and it's not in like a sneering or like superior way, but I do, because even reading books from like the 1600s, you always hear people being like, the majority of men are just unquestioning and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think that's the case, man.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's hopefully that's lessening, but I just, it's a bad thing to wrap your head around, honestly.
Well, and I think it's an important message here, because I don't want the listeners to think we're just being super negative. It's like, no, understand these patterns. And it's a pretty sneaky animal too, because the majority of people do want to hear the good news about their bad habits. It's like, oh, the obesity is not my fault. It's my biology. Or, and again, I don't know what I'm talking about with depression, but let's just say like, oh, like me feeling bad is not my fault. It's my biology, right? Like I need to take this pill to fix it. And human beings have a natural propensity to want to take the shortcut out, right? And that, because that's logical at its core, obviously, like it's just a hypotenuse, like the shortest distance between this is a straight line, right? A and B is a straight line. But at the same time, it's like you and I, and probably everybody else we know, have never encountered a situation, at least in my opinion, have never encountered a situation that you actually couldn't work through to fix. Like I've never really like any major issue. It's like if I put work towards it and I applied it consistently over time, I was better off because of it, and the solution came about, not just some sort of quick fix. So that's the message I really want people to hear.
Yeah, no, that makes, I mean, even like I had a problem. This is the other thing too. It's like your, perceived problems are being filtered through an emotional apparatus that is like just broadcasting like, here's the wrong thing to do. And it feels like the absolutely right. Like we put out a podcast yesterday and the sound was too low, and we did it the day before and the sound didn't get captured at all. So we're on like a 2-day loss. I tried putting it up and it's just a live stream of comments being like, this, I can't hear this. This sucks. I can't hear this. And I'm sleep deprived from never sleeping at all from having a baby. So it's like, here's a problem. And I've been on this mindfulness thing where I'm like, well, this isn't like, I've been trying to filter perceived problems through like, is this a biological threat? Like, no. It's like, okay, then I don't need to be activating these biological systems such as like anger, anxiety. Like these are totally unnecessary for this, right? Of course, like you were saying, it's sneaky. They're immediately being triggered because I'm dealing with a problem, not like the fact that there's no sound on a video. That's the problem. But the way I'm perceiving that problem through a future dystopian thing that I'm inhabiting mentally of like, everybody's going to leave and I'm going to be fucked. Oh no. So I'm dealing with a very simple thing that I need to troubleshoot through a projected future that I'm inhabiting, only me mentally, of like, everything's in like, it's all smoke and rubble in my head of like, everything's wrong. We're screwed. It's all going away. And, so I've been catching myself at trying to do this. And especially like, again, like you were saying with anger, like with anger. So it's like, this thing's not going my way. And because, we're talking about the act stuff initially with these sneaky thoughts. And here's a really sneaky thought is when things don't go this way, your brain instantly thinks of other people who are responsible for this. That's how my brain works. I'll instantly be like, God damn it, that fucking guy, man, I should have figured this out. But in reality, it's like, up along, like, and it's, this takes a while to kind of like train your brain into this, but it's like up along this video not working properly. There was a bunch of little things. And sorry, I should say too, like I've been trying to, when emotions pop up, like anxiety, depression, anger, rather than trying to immediately suppress them and like quick solve them by like pretty much ignoring them basically, or like rationalizing my way out of them. I've been leaning into them. When I'm anxious, I lean into that anxiety. I'm like, I'm going to feel this as much as I possibly can. But with anger, when you're angry and you try to feel anger as much as you can, it's like, dude, I honestly, so the sound didn't work. And immediately my brain was like, I should smash my headphones. And it's like, it's like, probably not. Luckily, I've come a long way. So I didn't smash my headphones. I'm like, all right, I'm taking these off. I don't need to break these. It's not going to help anything. But instead, so I'm leaning into the anger and I'm like, how is feeling, this is not helping me. Because usually you feel the anxiety. On anxiety, it's combined with a task that, like, if you just can feel the anxiety, proceed despite it, there's a reward being that you've now opened up a part that was blocked by your fear, if that makes sense. With anger,
absolutely.
Like, there's nothing on the other side of anger. I was like, what? There's nothing on the other side of this. I'm just fucking mad and I feel angry and I'm like kind of like bringing that feeling on. But this is like it's hard to, and I'm sorry I'm rambling, but it's like,
no, I'm loving it.
With anger, it's like, how do you channel anger positively? And it's like, it's hard because it just pops up. And like anger, to me, what I think it is, it's like, it's an evolutionary thing that's launching your body into immediate action. And so I'm looking at the headphone, the low volume situation. And, in the course of that day, there was a bunch of opportunities I could have like asserted myself more and been like, let's all stay and make sure this all works before we go home. And I'm like, I don't want to bug these guys. My wife's calling me like, what time are you coming home? I'm like, I should get home from her. But in reality, I could have been like, I'll be home in a couple hours. You got to chill. And like, hey, I know it sucks, but we have to stay for another half an hour. I know we all want to get out of here. So there was like this self-assertion that could have taken place that didn't. And it, in my opinion, resulted in an event that I didn't want to happen. And then typically your brain goes, my fucking wife called me. I'm like, God damn, he didn't test the thing right. When in reality, I applied anger. I filtered that anger through those situations where I personally perceive myself as failing. And now it's like, I'm attaching that anger to that. So the next time when I feel a little, small in a situation of like, I don't want to be a bother to people, or I don't want to let someone down, you channel that anger into like very swift and decisive action in the moment, instead of like a blind rage or calling someone and being like, you fucked up. It doesn't help anything. Sorry, I hope that's a very long way to explain it, but I hope that makes sense.
No. One of the things I want to ask you about there is you had it seems like a short list of questions. And I really like that because one thing, I agree with you. You said, we're often like brain twins. The thing that I do is I scale it. I say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how important is this thing? But that scale is really important. And to be honest, like I have some relationships, friends, family, and intimate relationship where it's just like, it's tough for me because the thing that they are reacting to, their reaction's a level 10, but in my opinion, it should be a level 4. And I'm not claiming holier than thou and like all, but I've been doing this for a while. And that scaling mechanism really helps, because when you can intellectually say like, this is a level 4, I should try my best to act in a level 4 reaction, rather than just saying like, oh my God. But I really like your question of 10 is like, is this a biological threat? Mm-hmm. Right. I'm going to start using that. That is a phenomenal question. And then it's like, if it's not like for you on a scale of 0 to 10, how much does biological threat, how many points in that scale does that take? So if it's a biological threat, then it's a level 8, 9, or 10. Right. Yeah. What is it for you?
Yeah, it would probably be 8 or 9. Yeah, 8, 9, or 10 would be like 8 would be like, is this threatening my access to food and resources? That's like a level 8. 9, 9 and 10 are basically like, is somebody breaking into my house and coming to murder me and my entire family? Or even like, if you could do level 10 would be like, if somebody blatantly like disrespected like somebody, like family member, mother or wife. If someone was like yelling at my mom, that's level 10. It's like, it's not necessarily, it could be a biological threat, but it's like, I'm going to fully, let my body be as angry as it wants and dealing with that. That's a situation where you're kind of like, well, I can be angry. This makes sense.
Oh yeah. Do you ask any other questions?
Huh?
Do you ask any other questions then? Is this a biological threat?
No, right now I kind of just ask like, is this a biological threat, and how is this affecting me in in my current naked present moment? Basically, is like,
Mm.
as I'm a person at a computer who can't get sound to work. That's my actual problem, and how much of my reaction to that is like perceived, futures, or laments or regrets or whatever. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point, because it seems like also what you're doing is trying to truthfully define the issue without the excess, without the fabrication, without the exaggeration. And if I'm accurate in saying that, is that also helpful for you?
Big time. It's been like, but again, like you said, once you start doing this, it's like you start watching other reactions, and you're like, and then when you're like, if your wife's mad and you're like, is this a biological threat? She's just like, shut the fuck up. But no,
Yeah.
it is. It's something that like, this is why I like the act stuff a lot. The part of it of just kind of like, like we're trained, we're the only animal who uses, interacts with our environment through language and symbols, which it's like, it opens up our experience to like an infinite array of problems, of rewards as well, of perceived problems and rewards. And the problem is we're navigating an infinite space, quote unquote, of like, being able to associate anything to anything else. Like, here's an apple. One time my mom threw an apple and hit me in the head. Now I see apples, and I think my mom, I'm like threatened by an apple, which is like, you can do that infinitely. You can associate anything with anything else. But the problem is we're inhabiting a like an infinite space of associating or relating, I should say, different things to different things, and like, our past to our futures to our present, when in reality I'm just a guy in the chair. I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking about the past. I have access to this infinite array of dimensions and all this other thing, mentally at least. But we navigate that with the nervous system of like a Cambrian period bug shark from 545 million years ago. We're just like,
Oh, yeah.
so it's like, and that's the thing too. It's like we have this nervous system. We're like evolutionary train wrecks. We have this nervous system. Part of our nervous system comes from like almost a thing that looks like from outer space that lived in the ocean 500 million years ago. And then we're also these hyper cooperative primates who can somehow we somehow dissociated from the physical nature of our environment and took the ability to step back and like, what's kind of going on here, which kind of brings gifts, and it brings, there's like the rose and thorns, whatever, of that situation. But again, we navigate that with this like super unupdated nervous system of like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like the iPhone -5 million, dude. It's
Yep.
like,
Yep.
so we're running a very advanced program on very, very archaic software. And it helps to be mindful of that. And like, you almost let your body do that. Like, don't, I try not before. I'm like, how can I just never be angry? And it's like, no, I'm a spaz. I'm going to be angry, but how can I mitigate the damage of that through being mindful? And that's like kind of, hopefully that makes sense, but it's like being mindful of the fact that we're not designed for this like weird thing we inhabit as human beings, but it's like being mindful of the fact that we're not designed properly for it helps us, feel less of that or wreak less damage unconsciously.
So for the listeners and for myself, honestly, I want to break down the formula. So stimulus happens for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you said, what's the problem? The audio, right? Audio problem with podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This happened. Something broke. Then is the next step, okay, is this a biological threat, or is the next step define the problem? Like, I want to make sure I get the sequence down in my head for me.
Yeah, I think it's first like, does this warrant? Because immediately my body's responding before. So I'm like, is this a biological threat? No, okay. And then it's like, let's define the problem very clearly. Because then I could be like, well, it's not a biological threat, but it fucking is this guy's fault. And I'm going to call him right now and chew him out. So now instead of like you said, like, let's define the problem. I need the sound to match the video and to be like of a good quality. I'm going to call the only person I know who can do that and insult them. It's like, that's not going to help. That's not going to help you get sound on your video at all.
Right.
It's like, and it's also not really fair to do, so it's like, it's just a mistake. There's no sound on the video. So yeah, then it's like, let me figure this out. But then there becomes, and this is where things get murky for me, where it's like, I can easily be like, it's not a big deal, but it is. It's like, I want sound on this video and I want it now. So it's like, it is a big deal. So it's like, how do I convey that to a person without like short selling myself, being like, whenever you get around to it, when in reality, I'm like, I want this done immediately, but I don't want to be like, I want this done immediately. So I have to be like, hey, if you could do it, that'd be awesome. I really appreciate you. So kind of have to like, me personally, have to balance like short selling myself by being like, let me not bother this person, by also not spazzing out and being like, get this done now, you son of a bitch. I want this done.
Right.
So that's where things become unclear.
Yeah. Okay. So it's stimulus, bad thing happens.
Yep.
Is this a biological threat? Question.
Mhm.
Okay. If it's the turn, if yes, then go full-fledged, lobster style, like my nervous system is going to attack or do whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like, so level 10 reaction. Okay. Anything but that, not biological threat. Okay. Take a breather, really define the issue without the excessive exaggeration, hyperbole, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Okay. Then respond.
Yeah. And part of that, defining the situation, while I'm doing that, I'm not trying to like turn off or switch off whatever I'm feeling in terms of like physical, like my physical feeling. If something happens, I get super anxious. I won't like, there's a lot of times, something happens, you get super anxious and your brain launches into problem solving mode. And you just take this quick action. That's probably not the best. But then you're just doing it to quell your anxiety rather than if you're like, I'm just going to sit with this for like a couple minutes and just fully feel this rather than launch into problem solving mode. That's kind of like you were saying, you shouldn't like define the problem. But there's like, for me, there's like a lag of like several minutes of like feeling, or even like 30 seconds of feeling what I'm feeling and not launching, like doing that before trying to solve the problems. You don't want to solve a problem from like a heightened biological state. That makes sense.
Well, and I'm happy you said that because that's an important part of this. So it's stimulus happens. Is this a biological threat? And then, okay, if not, feel it. Like allow yourself to feel. And I think a lot of guys, including myself, have a problem with that, right? Like I don't allow myself to feel it. Like, and if I do feel it, unless it's anger, like anger's kind of like cool, right? It's like, I'm going to feel this, but it's anything except for that. Like, nope, put it like, shove it down, like, stop feeling sad, right? Just, stop acting like a bitch, like that sort of thing. But I think that's really, really profound and really insightful. So stimulus, so bad thing happens. Is this a biological threat? Feel it, allow yourself to feel it. And then once that's gone away, and it seems like from what you're saying, that's a relatively short period of time, for most things, it seems like, then define the issue. Or did I have that sequence wrong?
Yeah, no, that's you. So let's list them again one more time, just so I'm clear.
Yep. So bad thing.
Sure.
Is this a biological threat? Feel it, right?
Feel your response, your perceived response. Because your body, again, you're navigating the space with that like Cambrian bug shark. So yeah, it is a biological threat. According to your nervous system, it always is. Then your rational monkey brain gets to go like, I don't know if it is or not. So yeah, so sorry. So feel it. Is it a biological threat? And then feel that feeling while telling yourself like, no, it's typically not.
Right.
And then what's the third one?
Then ask yourself to define the actual problem, like the actual facts.
Yes.
Right. And then respond. But the thing that you said about response, and I totally agree. And this goes into Jordan Peterson. Like when you're out there acting in the world, it's that whole quote of like, it's not whether or not you win, it's how you play the game. And what you're saying, that's an element of what you're saying is I'm going to respond to other human beings in a way that still accomplishes the objective, but then also allows me to keep on playing games with them in the future. Right. So I don't want to belittle them to the point where they hate me or they hate themselves and they make themselves less ineffective or less effective over time. Like I want to respond in ways to other people that allows me to be known as a good person to them and to myself in perpetuity.
Yeah. Or even just take, like, imagine how many times you worked in an office and it's like, you're at a company, you're working for somebody, and then like, you screw up and your boss is just like, you. And it's like, rather than if your boss would be like, look, we got to get a better system going here because it's everybody's problem. It's like to localize all of the fault onto one person. It feels good, but it's completely destructive of like, then you have a resentful employee who's like, my boss is a fucking asshole. Because it's like that, and that gets into like, you just have, it's like goes back to the golden rule stuff. It's like, you're I and everyone else is a you or they or them, but you're also a they or them and they're I. So it's like when you grant that perspective to other people, it's like, I have to respect this person, the fact that they're going to have a reaction if I spaz out of them and it's going to be a negative one and they're going to not like me because in their head, they didn't really do anything that wrong. Whenever you mess up, usually it's somewhat justified in your head. And you're like, why are they freaking out? It's an honest mistake. But if someone screws up your stuff, you're like, this idiot, God damn it. Like,
oh yeah.
So yeah, it's, it's kind of complex,
Yeah, I remember when I was actually the same company that you and I both worked for
Yeah.
back in college.
Yeah.
I had this boss, man, and he was just brutal, just absolute. And he had he had a system, and it was literally I will belittle people, right? It's kind of like the sandwich thing, except for he
Mhm.
forgot the first part of the sandwich. It's like an Oreo cookie. Like you're supposed to compliment somebody, right, and then you're supposed to trash them,
Yeah.
and then you compliment them on the back end, right? Like some sort of positive, negative, positive.
Mhm.
He would forget the first part, so he wouldn't compliment you, and he just completely trash you. And then he kind of have like a positive, uplifting little speech, like at the end of every like sort of like public announcement that you were terrible in front of everybody. And that was just this thing, and people hated him. Like people absolutely hated him, and it for sure held him back. Now, obviously, you can reach a certain amount of commercial or financial success doing that because it's like, I don't care, like just get this task done. I don't care if anybody hates me. But the people that I've seen do that over the long term, quality relationships are super important. If not every happiness book I've read, that's the most important thing.
Yep.
Right? So like respond in ways that still make you a likable person, as simple as that freaking sounds. Just like you said, Matt, like the golden rule, as simple as that sounds, it's very rarely practiced.
Yeah. And that again, that goes back to that struggle. I was just thinking about this morning, and it's like, again, it's like, well, the problem too is, again, like human beings are hyper cooperators. Like even as babies, if you give a baby a thing of like Honey Nut Cheerios and have two puppets, and like one's nice and one's mean, the baby will reward the nice puppet. Like a 1-year-old will reward the nice puppet. And even if you have like two toddlers and you tell one of the toddler, like, hey, you carry that like plastic slide over there, the other toddler will just naturally help them pick it up. So we're like born to be cooperative. But again, we have this other part of ourselves that's like this, like, this weird kind of insect reptile bug from a bazillion years ago that's just like has this other message that's like, I need to be the most important center of attention thing, and I need to just constantly I need to just gather space in the rocks and be like the number one of all time. So it's
Yep.
like we were being contrasted with like, that's it's just a real thing. Otherwise, how we have survived for so long. Then it's like we have this other thing where we're pushed to cooperate. So like you go, 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 drive everyone, accomplish, and then you've just absolutely wrecked all your relationships, and you're just kind of like, well, fuck, this sucks now. So like,
Oh
yeah, it's
yeah.
a super important thing to be kind of thinking about the whole time.
No, 100%. And especially as men, we are taught that, especially you and I growing up on the East Coast, there is definitely a message of like, just be a bull in a china shop, and that's cool. Like, just be physically strong, be mentally strong, be like, verbally strong, which can like borderline on abuse. Um,
Yeah.
you know, but now we should be intelligent enough to see that that is a very destructive path. And I think you and I both know people who are very rich, but also have destroyed all of their relationships, and they are miserable. I know several of them, like multi millionaires who just ran over relationships, and now their money serves them no utility when in their mind for decades it was supposed to. Like at some point, like, I'm just gonna play this game super hard, and like, yeah, like collateral damage, let it be what it be. And then, at some point in their head, and that's the thing, they never really defined it. I guess they thought that everybody would come flocking back to them, now that they're in their, early 50s, late 50s, 60s, et cetera. It's like, no, everybody hates you, dude, including your kids.
Yeah, it's got a sting, man. And that's the problem too. And this is the thing that I've been thinking about a lot. And I think it's kind of valid, but it's like, I put relationships on par with like eating, sleeping. Like it's a biological
Mm.
necessity. Like especially as babies, we're born and we're supposed to attach, like we're supposed to attach to whoever's around us. And it's like a real biological process. So it's like, and I think too, like if you take a baby, and I'm pretty sure about this, it might not be right, but if you have a baby and you feed it and do everything, but you just don't touch it, I think it'll die. Like I think like that's how deep this goes into. Like you need to be touched. You need to be part of like other, a human network. Otherwise, again, like imagine if you took a person and just fed them and kept them biologically alive and kept them away from other people, you'll probably die. Like
Oh
it'll
yeah.
send you into like the most, like we're totally designed to not have that. And the problem is like, so if you and that's not really the case, but typically people get some gradient of that where like, they get some sort of interaction, but it's not good. And it doesn't like, it's not like a real honest and empathetic and open where a person can just be their own innate person and be accepted and, related to by another person who's doing it. Rather, it's like, say you have a parent who's like an abusive alcoholic, and then you don't really show your true self to an abusive alcoholic. You start to develop all these defense mechanisms, and you're kind of like, so you learn to kind of relate to other human beings through this weird perverted way that, in my opinion, launches people into a thing where like I have this innate desire for human connection and relationship, but I've been found that when I honestly relate to people, it doesn't go well. So what I'm going to do is, and this is extreme achievers. I feel like I have this as well. It's like, I'm going to extremely achieve to the highest of high levels so that and then I'll designate a time when I can actually go back and like focus on relationships, but only after I do X, Y, and Z. And that I think gives people a thing where like, then I'll be able to interact with people from a position of like being extremely desired, where I can have better control over relationships. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's like, it's kind of, to me, I found it kind of true. And it's like, or you can just do that the whole time while you're pursuing all of your other stuff, not be on like Conan's, revenge quest or whatever.
Oh yeah. No, dude, you're like what you just narrated was my script for a long time. And I still, to this day, I have to fight against that script.
Yeah.
Because New York, it's like, hey man, you work 100 hours a week. Like, who cares about birthday parties? Like, yeah, you'll be able to celebrate but you'll be able to get them the best gift, 25 years from now. Yeah. That's literally what it is. As crazy as that sounds, like that's literally playing in the background.
Yeah. But the problem is 25 years from now, you're still the you that was like, one day I'll be able to, and it's like, no, dude, that's now. Like, if you can't do it now, you won't be able to do it in 25 years when you're driving a different car. It's like, you're still you. It's not, so yeah, that's a thing that like, it's hard to reconcile. I had to reconcile with that personally. Whereas like anything less than spectacular success, I don't deserve to even like walk on this earth. It's like, that's crazy. It's insane. Unless there's a clearly defined thing. There's no clearly defined thing on the end of that. It's like, then you get something, you're like, I'm going to lose this. You're like, shit. It's like, yeah, man, it's just, I hope people can kind of launch into that. And I hate when people get into like, well, this, like, I'll just be totally apathetic. And it's like, that's not it either, man. It's like,
no.
How can it's just a balance thing. It's like, how can you be aware of this while also not slipping into like, and it's not like, yeah, I should just play video games all day. It's like, no.
Right. Yeah. I think you and I have talked a lot about, like, for me, it's really easy to synthesize it in my head. It's like, health, wealth, relationships, and am I enjoying the process? That's kind of like my very quick, like, snapshot, like, okay, something's off. How's my health? How much am I putting into my health? Okay. How much am I putting into my wealth, whether it be my career, finances, etc.? Because that's a very real thing for me. And by the way, I think it should be a real thing for everybody, because money's not a bad thing. Like, money is the resource for a lot of stuff, right? Like, in a lot of good, healthy, important stuff for lives. And then relationships, like, how are my relationships? Am I putting the stuff into, and that's where I consistently fail. Like, I need to do so much more. Am I inputting enough effort into relationships? And then the fourth question is, am I enjoying the process? And for years, I did not ask that question.
Yeah.
It was like, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, I don't care if, like, I'll grind it out or like all these. And it's like, no, it's like, this sucks, man. Like, I'm not getting sleep. I'm stressed out. Like, this is not like, so now that final question has really been a game changer for me. But yeah, if all of those things, especially relationships, that should be put first, in my opinion, or actually, I think health should be put first, because that's kind of the prerequisite for everything. But yeah, for all the guys listening to this, it's like, do not, if you're off, check those 4 areas. I mean, Matt, would you add to any of those 4 areas, or is everything?
I think that's always been super helpful for me, because I think you have an awesome way of kind of putting everything into kind of more granular steps. Because I can be like, oh, here's this thing, and then it's just like, well, that was a cool thought, and then I go back to like my just total mess of whatever. But it's like, when you step stuff down like that, it's like, yeah, it's an easy way to filter your experience, where you're like, am I doing these 4 things? And if I'm doing all of these 4 things and something's still off, then like, that's also a problem. So it's like, maybe you're not doing the things exactly you want to do. And I think the last question of like, are you enjoying this, is the biggest one. Because it's like, I'm doing all these things, but if you're not enjoying it, like, well, what would you rather be doing? And even the money thing's a big sticking point for a lot of people, is they're like, oh, I don't care about that. And it's like, okay, so what do you care about? And it's like say, for instance, like the fact that like, I was able to go to college. Neither of my parents went to college. My dad worked. He saved all of his money so he could send all of his kids, if they wanted to go, to college. And it's like, and that took money. That took him every day going and doing all this stuff that, it wasn't probably the most glamorous. I think he enjoyed it, but it's still like, he went and he did all this work. He worked really hard. And now it's like, I got an education, which is like, it's almost priceless, dude, where it's like,
oh yeah,
there's a lot of nonsense with college, and there's a lot of waste and all this, but it's still like the fact that I can sit here and like think about the Cambrian period and my associative learning versus relational. My parents don't get to do that, because they didn't get the education. It just wasn't there for them, So it's like that. And to say like, you know, oh, I don't want money to be a motivating force. It's like, well, that took money, dude. There was no other way it was kind of me. I wasn't going to get there. I can't play the violin. I can't play lacrosse.
Yep.
So it was like, I needed money for me to learn.
Oh yeah. I
So,
mean,
yeah.
it's countless. I think oftentimes when people say that, and by the way, like I've caught myself saying that, you know, years and years ago. Typically when I said that, it was because I wasn't getting it. Right. So I made this thought. It's like, oh, well, that's not important. And it's like, no, I'm just not playing the game properly and I'm not getting the results. So I'm just going to respond by saying, oh, it's not important. Right. Like rich people are bad.
Well, even if you just like forget about rich people and like how much are you making now? Try to make more than you are currently making right now.
Yes.
It's like, you know, forget about all that. And like, yeah, a lot of that is nonsense of like, you watch like the Housewives of Beverly Hills and it's like, I don't want that. It's like, you shouldn't. But it's like, you know, if you're working right now and you're getting, you know, $16, $15, $20 an hour, and you should be working to get more. You should be working to, and not even just, it's not even just about the money. It's about being able to communicate to another human being. Like time has passed and I think I've developed, and I think I want that to be reflected in this weird arbitrary number that I get to have access to, if that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
Completely. And then not forgetting the fourth question, right? Like, you know, are you enjoying it?
Yeah.
Like, are you enjoying the process? And yes, sometimes, right, it's going to be, you know, you and I both worked at jobs, whether it be janitorial or digging ditches or rehabbing, whatever it is, right? Like construction, et cetera. So yeah, there are times when that's not a very enjoyable process, but it's that great Steve Jobs quote. He's like, when I looked at my life, just when you look at your life, make sure if you're asking yourself, you know, or you're telling yourself, I'm not enjoying this process too many days in a row, like something has to change. Yeah. Right. So we don't want to get just a blanket statement of like, you always got to love what you do. Cause like, yeah, obviously sometimes you got to do shit you don't like.
Yeah. And that's something I struggle with too. Cause I have the ability to be like, well, I'm out of here, but that can work against you as well. Because then I'd have things where like, no, that was just like you said, this is a couple stressful days. Like that doesn't mean like, I'm doing the wrong thing. It's like, no, you're doing the right thing. You have to just eat some shit for, you know, a couple days because that's just part of it. So again, that's a balance thing of like when do you detach? Yeah. And generally I know like, even like, you know, it's digging ditches, this and that, or sitting in a computer screen all day. Sucks, man. That's what the one that really like threw me for a loop, but it's like, you know, like, are you?
I remember that. That's why I'm laughing. I remember how much like
man.
pain and agony that put you through.
Oh, you would like see your boss wouldn't be there yet. And I just, you know, and it's embarrassing to think, but I'm like, maybe he got in a car accident. Like, I hope this guy doesn't get here ever again. Like that. And again, that's, you know, I don't even feel bad about that because that's just the part. I'm a trapped animal, like having to call people about IT parts that I know nothing about. And like, I hate this. I feel that he shows up and you're like, hey, what's up, Steve? What's happening? But yeah, man, I know. I absolutely agree. Again, it's like just defining what you like to do. Does that match with the economic reality you inhabit, which is something, a bitter pill I've had to swallow for a long time. It's like, well, I shouldn't have to. It's like, you do though, man. It's like, you got to like hone your things to be able to fit into a marketplace on some level.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know? So
and it's so rewarding. Like what, like, yeah, at the bottom level where you're trying to like climb up through Maslow's hierarchy, and it's like, you know, yeah, like, you know, you and I and a lot of listeners know exactly what it's like to see like, shit, like I need to eat. Like I need to buy food, and it's questionable right now. You know, like that is not a good feeling. That is at such a deep level. And, you know, I've been there, you've been there, like we know what that feels like. So, but eventually, like when you start to play the game at a higher level and you start to see that like, oh man, like I'm providing value to humans.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, what I'm doing is actually working. And then you get an email or you get a comment back that says like, hey man, that really helped me. And by the way, you can do that at McDonald's, right? Like,
sure.
You know, you can do that actually at the very low levels. I just never thought that way when I was a kid. But eventually it becomes super enjoyable if you don't convince yourself to go some direction just because other people say so, or just because you think you're going to make more money there. I promise you, the direction you're going to make the most money is the direction. Number one, you got to play the game for a long time. But the number two, the only way you're going to be able to play the game for a long time is if you enjoy the process. That's the only way. That is the only way if you can play that game for decades upon decades. And those are the people that are making money.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, what you just said about McDonald's is like, and again, I didn't think this way at all either. And this is especially for people who are younger. It's like, this is the Matrix red pill thing, or blue, whichever one. I don't know what color it's supposed to be, but it's like to be at McDonald's, to be like, I'm making, you know, whatever it is now, maybe it's $9, $10 an hour. It's like, you can reduce any task down to like just saying it, which sounds bad. Like, I'm just flipping burgers. I'm just a guy flipping burgers and dunking fries into hot grease, and I'm making $8 an hour. And it's like, And that's a crushingly depressing and hard reality to inhabit. But you're also the one narrating that, where like you were saying, Wes, if you switch to flip it, you're like, I'm working at a company, like, yeah, we make food and stuff, but there's also this underlying human dynamic that is like, who's doing what and why, that I can also plug myself into to like, let me make this place run more efficiently. Let me, this person's always showing, let me find out what that's about in a way that doesn't offend them or make them angry. And these are like basically managerial skills where you can separate yourself from the physical tasks of like, yeah, I'm just a guy who dunks fries. And like, how do you keep the guy from dunking fries from fighting with the burger lady or the lady with the headset at the thing? And that's the whole thing you can open up personally to be like, and it just takes initiative, because then you have a manager, somebody starts arguing, you step up and you're like, hey guys, you squash it. You're just a fry guy. Now the manager's like, huh, you're not just a fry guy. You're actually paying attention to the actual dynamic that is this whole system of interacting people. And they take note of that. And then if you're at a part where you're just like, I don't give a shit about fries and burgers, it's like, well, try to find something you actually do give a shit about and can kind of get into more of that whole process of where I'm not a cog in the wheel. I'm a person interacting with other people. And yeah, I'm not getting paid that much, but one day I could, if I keep this mentality of like fully inhabiting the space I'm in rather than resorting to daydream and hatred of what I'm doing. That makes sense.
You're spot on. The humans, what is fascinating about humans is we have the ability to create meaning. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, yeah, you can make it mean that I'm just sitting here dunking fries in hot oil, or you could make it mean that, wow, I get to work in this multi-billion-dollar corporation. Like, I'm looking at the secret sauce. They do have a secret sauce. So stupid. Yeah, the stuff that I make myself laugh at. It's like, oh, I get to see this machine. Like, you got to realize McDonald's is one of the most well-oiled machines that humans have created in human history. Right there, it's
fat, but yeah, for sure, 100%.
Oh yeah,
100%.
So it's like you can make it mean that, and it's like, and oh my gosh, I get to work here. Right, or some dude over who was born in some developed yes. non-developed country right now would kill to be working here. And you can change that meaning like that. Not to sound corny about it, but that's just the truth. That is so true. Mm-hmm. And the formula that Matt gave you earlier can definitely help you do that.
Yeah, no, I do it 100%. And that's like, again, that's something I wish I had when I was younger, to be able to not be like this, because usually then you inhabit that. And I've been in those kind of jobs. Usually it's hard to do because the manager's such a dickhead. Such a raging asshole. It's like just scores of emotional problems that are totally unchecked and they're taking out on you the whole time. Mm-hmm. But it's like, if when you're there and you're a young person, you're like, is this it for me? It's terrible. That's like, I would actually put that as like a level 8. That's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Is this it for me? And it is for a lot of people. That's the only level of economic activity they have access to. But again, like the only thing on the other, and if that's literally where you're at, the only thing you can do, and this, can be a bittersweet pill to swallow, is to like, if you have children or whatever, even if you don't, just try to like help find people who would have a way out of that and help do what you can do to push people out. And typically that's reciprocated in some fashion. So like it's the only thing you can try to do is cooperate with either like, your children or other people to like, let's try to get the fuck out of here, rather than like, you want to smoke some weed before you go to work, which, it's like, I did that forever. I would just do like smoke weed and go to work with my dad, which is, I don't advise anybody to do. That's a terrifying experience. I'd be down in like a ditch and he'd have a giant machine like digging dirt near me. And I'm like, but it's like, you just, when you're not into the whole full generational picture and like, I'm just part of a process and I'm with all these other people have feelings like I have, it's just a better way to go about things. And we're just not given that information at all.
Oh yeah, asking yourself, how can I thoroughly enjoy this process, if not love this process,
or leave it? And if you can't, like you said, get out. It's like, well, I can't quit. I need money. It's like, well, while you're doing that, dedicate some of that other time you have, because you're not working 24 hours a day, to figuring out something else to do. That's all you can do. Like you said, like, what is the problem here? How can I solve it? That's how you solve it. It's hard. I know it's hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
And I also think, you're exactly right. I also think, I don't know what you think about this, Matt, but one thing I've concentrated on is trying to kind of keep the demons at bay or reduce the chaos. So for instance, if I look at the spectrum of health, wealth, relationships, and am I enjoying the process? If I'm about to make a move that I know is going to cause some chaos, right? Let's just say, I don't know, end a relationship or start a new job or start whatever, like something where it's going to be chaotic, where I'm about to enter into this world of like battle, right? Of combat. I take a period of time to make sure that all of the other areas, or as many areas of my life in those core domains, are good.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm trying to reduce the chaos, because voluntarily going into combat is sometimes necessary, but I don't want to do it if I've got, chaos in all these other areas, because then it just feels like the world is falling down. For humans, I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself. I don't need too many things to be falling around for me to think that the world's just like going up.
Yeah.
It's like two things, like three things. It's like life is going crazy, right? It's like, no, it's only three things, but that's not how you think about it, right? So it's like if you have 4 or 5 things going on at the same time, like I don't like to do that. I like to be able to say, okay, I'm going to make sure everything else is good. And saving money has been one of those things for me, right? Like I can tell you growing up that every problem that I remember as a child, every problem was magnified and exaggerated, because at the end of that problem is like, oh, and we're broke.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and we're broke. Right. Like, and the lights just got turned off. And that was like something I was committed to. Now, again, that was just the money part, but it's like, now it's like, okay, I'm about to do this thing. How are my relationships? How's my relationship with Matt? How's my relationship with my partner? How's my relationship with all of these things? So because I'm about to get into conflict with this person. I mean, have you found something similar where like trying to reduce chaos?
Yeah, that's a really good way. I'm curious to how you actually go back and, I mean, saving money definitely helps, but it's like, if you think what you're saying is like, you're dealing with these like, relational symbolic problems, but then you actually do have like an actual level 8, which is like, oh shit, they're turning our lights off. So that'll like,
yep,
that's actually going to make things infinitely worse. And it's like completely and 100% justified. I mean, and the other thing too, of like, dealing with multiple things at once, like yesterday, the sound's not working. And like now the baby wakes up when it's not supposed to wake up. Now I'm not sleeping. And it's like, again, I'm the same way. If like 3 domains in my life flare up at once, you can instantly be like, is this the apocalypse? Is this the rapture? Like, and it's really like, you just have 3 problems at once, but yeah, dude, you're 100% right. But yeah, I never thought about that before. And that is one of those things too, that makes a lot of sense, where like, say you are, and I've been in this situation before, you're in a relationship and you're like, this isn't working for me at all, whether it's work or, if it's just a romantic relationship, and you're like, the idea of ending it, like you said, is just like out of the question, because all these other aspects of your life, you're like your professional life totally in chaos. You got all this other crazy stuff going on. And you're just like, that now's not a good time for this. But like you said, if you could just kind of like, set the things up that you can deal with and get those set up as best you can, and then enter into that, so you don't get thrown into like a total like 3-way mirrored hallway of like multiple problems at once. It gives you the ability to deal with that one stressful situation that you can handle, rather than having everything just like constantly being, on fire at all times.
It really helped me, because there was, I would say several years ago, my actions were more present based. It's like, oh, like, I'm good. Like I can stay up a little bit tonight. I can stay up until 2 a.m. because like, I'm good. Right. It's like, no, you don't know what the chaos could be tomorrow. Right. So it's like, oh, well, I've earned staying up tonight. It's like, well, yeah, maybe you have, maybe that's true, but you don't know what the future is going to hold. So why don't you invest a little bit in yourself right now? So it's a shield, it's a hedge against that future chaos. And do that. And it's that whole quote of like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And dude, because that's the other thing. Sometimes you voluntarily go into chaos, but actually a lot of times what happens is you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you just imagine, I can't imagine what it's like to go through chaos, to go through some sort of major problem and then say, oh shit, I've got diabetes too. Do you know what I mean? Like adding on these like things that could have been solved, could have been avoided, that are systemic because of your own decision-making. Now, if you're listening to this and you had diabetes, it's like, use this maybe as a wake-up call. Like reduce the chaos that is possible, that you can actually have an impact on, because you don't know what the future chaos is going to be like.
Yeah. And you're talking like type 2. It's like, if you develop them through, typically it's lifestyle. Yeah. And even like you said, like you were saying too, like we were talking before about how like, we have that we're operating, much of our nervous system's derived from this like 500 million year old like bug shark. It's like, well, then when you don't sleep, that bug shark now is drunk. So it's like, you're dealing with an old system that is now defective, on top of being just like 500 million years old. So when you don't sleep, it's like, it's like, say things pop up now, you stayed up late, like I should watch the Terminator or whatever and stay up till like 2 a.m. And then it's like, you go to work and all of a sudden there's just like nonstop, there's shit happens, shit hits the fan. You're now, like you said, you rolled the dice and now you have to deal with an emergency while totally kind of like, again, like firing on, like you're, 3 of your 5 cylinders aren't firing. It's like,
That's exactly right. And most people don't understand, like you understand, how the brain works. So the very thing that you need to make sense of the thing that's going on is malfunctioning.
Yeah.
But it doesn't know that it's malfunctioning, which is very fascinating. So you think that you're right. Like that's the one thing. One of the reasons I don't drink is like, when you're, and I think when you're kind of mildly drunk, that's a kind of a worse culprit than just being like, completely wasted, is because your experience that you're taking in, you think is right. But it's the problem is you're experiencing creating apparatus is broken at that point in time. Right? It's the same thing with sleep. The same exact thing with sleep. So then you can go in and treat people like garbage, right? But if you didn't do the research on sleep and you don't know how the brain works, you then think that you're still right the next day. When in reality, it's like, no, you should be apologizing to those people, right? Because you were just a cranky bastard for no other reason than you just didn't get the proper sleep or the hydration, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Dude, it's yeah, it really is. It does boil down to the basics. And I have to constantly remind myself, is again, same thing. It's like I wake up, I'm like, I can't rest. I need to do this. If I don't do this, I don't know. Like you were saying, the extreme achievements thing, which I think it's a good thing to have. And I think, it's a good thing to keep, you got it. I'm glad I have that rather than just like being totally demotivated, which I can't really imagine. I mean, I've definitely spent spells like that, but never really for long. But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, look, man, all these tasks you're telling yourself you have to do, if you didn't sleep properly, if you can sleep, do it. If you can't, you can't. I get that. But it's like there's times where like I can totally sneak a nap and I just don't. So I'm like, well, I have to do this other stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like,
being intentional about it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to structure my activities through physiological needs where it's like, exercise before I do anything. If I didn't get enough sleep the night before, no problem. I'm going to do stuff I got to do. And then I'm going to build in it. I'm going to make myself take a nap. And those things will still be here. The world will still be spinning. It'll be fine when I wake up and I'll be better for it.
So wrapping things up here, what is, and this was phenomenal first go at this, man. It was unreal.
Yeah, man.
One big takeaway you have from today's discussion, and then I'll give mine.
Mine is the biggest thing is to, put your day into some sort of like, don't be scared to put it into more granular details where it's like, schedule, like you said, like step, like, and I'll just talk and then you'll be like, well, here's, I feel like your brain is very good at deriving steps and like manualizing, which is fantastic of like, how can I set my day up and, not even just like a mantra, but like what can I tie my day to in terms of like some sort of structure and order? Because it's necessary, man. It's like, and it's so funny because it alleviates so much anxiety to more your day and like goals. Cause then like, rather than like, I got to do stuff. It's like, no, I got to do 4 things. And once they're done, guess what? I'm done and I can just go do whatever I want, which you should be doing too. It's an important thing to do. But yeah, no, that's what I think. Write it down, look at it. And like you said, basically the very beginning, write it down, see it, reward yourself. And I forget the third one.
What the remind, routine, reward?
Yeah, exactly. So write it down. Mine would be write it down, remind yourself, reward yourself.
Yep, 100%. And thank you, man, because the big thing you taught me today was that sequence, the formula, right? The stimulus is a biological threat, et cetera. Like that was a huge takeaway. I'm gonna start doing that because there's just that little switch I was kind of already doing to a certain degree, but that little switch I think is it was really profound. So thanks for sharing. If you had to give the guys a challenge, quick challenge that they can win on, what would the challenge be? It could be push-ups, it could be sit-ups, it could be meditating. What's a challenge for everybody?
I would just say pay attention to if you do, hopefully you don't, but if you do get spun out on some level today where you get like angry at like a boss or like, annoyed or anxious or start feeling yourself kind of thinking negatively, rather than trying to evade that through like, I need a cigarette right now, or just sit and feel it. Just sit and feel it. And a deeper challenge too, if you want, there's a mindfulness app. It's a mindfulness bell. Put that on your phone, let that ding if you're in a setting that allows that. And that thing dings every hour. And when that dings, that's when you check in. Like, what am I feeling right now? If you just gotten a big blowout with your wife, you're feeling bad, to just, as soon as that dings, just remind yourself, like, I'm going to sit with whatever I'm feeling right now and experiencing it rather than like launching yourself into this whole ill-fated sequence of events that'll probably just bring about more pain.
Hell yeah. Awesome, brother. Appreciate it. If any listeners are having questions, just shoot me a message or shoot Matt a message and we'll go from there. All right, dude. Thank you, brother.
All right, man. Thanks, dude.